faulty earth, but if wickedness shall be found in him, he shall die. So King Solomon sent, and they brought him down from the altar, and he came, and he bowed himself to King Solomon, and Solomon said unto him, Go to thine house. 1 Kings chapter 2.
Hold on, I'll take over.
Okay.
Grab me water, would you? Those skeeters, thank you, Jesus.
Well, there you
Thank you, buddy.
getting on my leg.
All right. 1 Kings chapter 2. Now the days of David, you gotta go up here. The days of David drew nigh that he should die. And he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of the earth, be thou strong therefore, and show thyself a man. And keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments, and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, whithersoever thou turn thyself. And the Lord may continue his word which he spake concerning me, saying, If thy children take heed to their way, to walk before me in truth, with all their heart, with all their soul, there they shall not fail thee, he said it, and a man on the throne of Israel. Moreover, thou knowest what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me, and what he did to the two captains of the host of Israel, and to Abner the son of Ner, and to Amasa the son of Jether, whom he slew, and shed the blood of war in peace, and put the blood of war upon his girdle that was about his loins, and in his shoes that were on his feet. Do therefore according to thy wisdom, and let not his whorehead go down to the grave in peace, but show kindness to the sons of Barzillai the Gilead, and tell him to be of those that eat at thy table, for so they came to me when I fled because of Absalom thy brother. And behold, thou was with thee Shemuel the son of Geral, a Benjamite of Bahurim, which cursed me with a grievous curse in the day when I went to Mahanaim. And he came down to meet me at Jordan, and I sware to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put thee to death with the sword. Now therefore he told him, Not guiltless, for thou art a wise man. Thou knowest what thou oughtest to do unto him, that his whorehead bring him down to the grave with blood. So David slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David. The days that David reigned over Israel were 40 years. 7 years reigned he in Hebron, and 33 years reigned he in Jerusalem. Then sat Solomon upon the throne of his David, his father, and his kingdom was established greatly. And Adonijah the son of Haggith came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, and she said, Come thou peaceably. And he said, Peaceably. He said, Moreover, I have somewhat to say to thee. And she said, Say on. And he said, Thou knowest that the kingdom was mine, that all Israel set their faces on me, that I should reign. Howbeit the kingdom is turned about, and is become my brother, for it was his from the Lord. And now I ask one petition of thee, deny me not. And she said unto him, Say on. And he said, Speak, I pray thee, unto Solomon the king, for he will not say thee nay, that he give me Abishag the Shunammite to wife. And Bathsheba said, Well, I will speak to thee unto the king. Bathsheba therefore went unto the king Solomon to speak unto him for Adonijah. And the king rose up to meet her, and bowed himself unto her, and sat down on his throne, and caused a seat to be set for the king's mother. And she sat on his right hand. Then she said, I desire one small petition of thee. I pray thee, say me not nay. And the king said unto her, Ask on, my mother, for I will not say thee nay. And she said, Let Abishag the Shunammite be given to Adonijah the brother to wife. And the king Solomon answered and said unto his mother, Why dost thou ask Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? Ask him for the kingdom also, for he is mine elder brother, even for him, for Abiathar the priest, and for Joab the son of Zeruiah. Then King Solomon sware by the Lord, saying, God, do so to me, and more also, if Adonijah have not spoken this word against his own life. Now therefore, as the Lord liveth, which hath established me, and set me on the throne of David my father, who hath made me a house as he promised, Adonijah shall be put to death this day. And King Solomon sat by the hand of Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and he fell upon him, and he died. And unto Abiathar the priest he said to the king, Get thee to Ananoth unto thine own field, for thou art worthy of death. For I will not at this time put thee to death, because thou bearest the ark of the Lord God before David my father, because thou hast been afflicted in all wherein my father was afflicted. So Solomon thrust out Abiathar from being a priest unto the Lord, that he might fulfill the word of the Lord, which he spake concerning the house of Eli in Shiloh. Then tidings came to Joab, for Joab had turned after Adonijah, though he turned not after Absalom, and Joab fled into the tabernacle of the Lord, and caught hold on the horns of the altar. And it was told King Solomon that Joab was fled in the tabernacle of the Lord, and behold, he is by the altar. Then Solomon said, Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, saying, Go, fall upon him. Benaiah came to the tabernacle of the Lord, and said unto him, Thus saith the king, Come forth. And he said, Nay, but I will die here. Benaiah brought the king word again, saying, Thus saith Joab, and thus he answered me. And the king said unto him, Do as he hath said, and fall upon him, and bury him, that thou mayest take away the innocent blood which Joab has shed from me and from the house of my father. And the Lord shall return his blood into his own head, who fell upon 2 men more righteous and better than he. And he slew them with the sword. My father David, not knowing thereof, to wit, Abner the son of Ner, captain of the host of Israel, and Amasa the son of Jether, captain of the host of Judah. Their blood shall therefore return upon the head of Joab, and upon the head of his seed forever. But upon David, and upon his seed, and upon his house, and upon his throne, there shall be peace forever from the Lord. So Benaiah the son of Jehoiada went up, and fell upon him, and slew him, and he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. And the king put Benaiah the son of Jehoiada in his room over the host, and Zadok the priest did put the king in the room of Abiathar. And the king sent and called for Shimei, and said unto him, Build thee a house in Jerusalem, and dwell there. Go not forth thence any whither. For it shall be that on the day thou goest out and pass over the brook Kidron, thou shalt know that for certain thou shalt surely die, for thy blood shall be upon thine own head. And Shimei shall say to the king, saying is good, As my lord the king has said, so will thy servant do. And Shimei dwelt in Jerusalem many days. And it came to pass at the end of 3 years, 2 of the servants of Shimei ran away to Achish the son of Maacah, king of Gath. They told Shimei, saying, Behold, thy servants be in Gath. Shimei arose and saddled his ass, and went to Gath, to Achish, to seek his servants. And Shimei went and brought his servants from Gath. And it was told Solomon that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath, and was come again. And the king sent and called for Shimei, and said to him, Did I not make thee to swear by the Lord, and protest unto thee, saying, For a certain on the day thou goest out, and walkest abroad any whither, thou shalt surely die? And he said unto me, The word that I have heard is good. When then hast thou not kept the oath of the Lord, and the commandment which I have charged with thee? And the king said, Moreover to Shimei, Thou knowest all the wickedness which thine heart is privy to, thou didst to my father, therefore the Lord shall return thy wickedness upon thine own head. And the king Solomon shall be blessed, and the throne of David shall be established for the Lord forever. So the king commanded Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, which went out and fell upon him, that he died. And the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. 1 Kings chapter 3. And Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh's king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter, and brought her to the city of David, till he had made an end of the building of his own house, and the house of the Lord, and the wall of Jerusalem round about. Only the people sacrificed in the high places, for there was no house built in the name of the Lord until those days. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and burned incense in the high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Solomon offer upon that altar. In Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, Ask what I shall give thee. And Solomon said, Thou hast showed unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, in righteousness, in uprightness of heart with thee. Thou hast kept for him the great kindness that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father. But I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. My servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people. Thou cannot be numbered nor counted for the multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this, so great a people? And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. God said unto him, Because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast thou asked for riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Therefore I have done according to thy words. Lord, I have given thee wise and understanding heart, so there was none like thee before, neither after shall any arise like unto thee. I have also given thee that which thou hast asked not, both riches and honor, so there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. If thou wilt walk in my ways, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem, and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings, and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. Then came two women that were harlots unto the king, and stood before him. And one woman said, O my lord, I and this woman dwelled in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. And it came to pass the third day, that after I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also, and we were together. There was no strangers with us in the house, save we two in the house. And this woman's child died in the night, because she overlaid on it. And she arose at midnight, and took my son from beside me, while thy handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. And when I arose in the morning to give my child suck, behold, it was dead. When I had considered it in the morning, beholding, it was not my son, which I did bear. And the other woman said, Nay, but the living one is my son, and the dead is thy son. And this said, No, but the dead is thy son, and the living is my son. Thus they spake before the king. And then said the king, The one saith, This is my son that liveth, and thy son is dead. The other said, Nay, but the son is dead, and my son is living. And the king said, Bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, Divide the living child in two, give half to the one, and the other half to the other. Then spake the woman, whose the living child was, unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her the child, and let her be in no wise slay it. But the other said, Let it be neither mine nor thine, but divide it. And the king answered and said, Give her the living child, and no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw the wisdom of God was in him to do judgment. 1 Kings chapter 4. So King Solomon was king over all Israel, and these were the princes which had Azariah the son of Zadok the priest, Elihurib and Anaiah the sons of Shishah the scribes, Jehoshaphat the son of Helud the recorder, Benaniah the son of Jehoiada was over the host, Zadok and Abiathar were the priests, Azariah was the son of Nathan, was over officers, and Zebud the son of Nathan was principal officers, and the king's friend, and Hishar was over the household, Adoniram was the son of Zabdah was over the tribute, and Solomon had 12 officers over all Israel, which provided victuals for the king and his household. Each man his month and a year made provision. These are their names: the son of Hur in the mount of Ephraim, the son of Dekar, Makaz, and Shalibim, and Belshemish, and Elazaphanam, and the son of Heshid, and the Rabath pertained him Succoth, and all the lands of Hepher, and the son of Abadab, and all the region of Dor, which had Tephath, the daughter of Solomon, to wife. And all the son of Elud, to him pertained Tanakh, Megiddo, and Bethshemam, and Zertanah, beneath Zeril, and Bethshan, to Abimelech, even to the place that is beyond Jekanim. The son of Gibor, to Ramoth Gilead, to him pertained the towns of Jeor, the son of Manasseh, which are in Gilead. To him also pertained the regions of Argob, which is in Bashan, 80 cities with the walls and brazen bars. And Henadad, the son of Adu, had Mahanaim, and Hemiz was in Naphtali. He also took Bashmath, the daughter of Solomon, to wife. Banah, the son of Hushai, was in Asher in Haloth. Jehoshaphat, the son of Peruah, is in Ishar. Shemiah, the son of Elah, in Benjamin. Geber, the son of Uri, was in the country of Gilead, in the country of Elon, the king of the Amorites, and of Og, the king of Bashan. He was the only officer which was in the land. Judah and Israel were many as the sand which is by the sea in multitude, eating and drinking and making merry. And Solomon reigned over all the kingdoms from the river into the land of the Philistines, and as the borders of Egypt. And they brought presents and served Solomon all the days of his life. And Solomon's provisions for one day was 30 measures of fine flour, 30 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen, 20 oxen out of the pastures, and 100 sheep, besides harts and roebucks, and fallow deer and fatted fowl. For he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Tishah to Ashah, to all the kings on this side of the river. And he had peace on all the sides round about him. And Judah and Israel dwelt safely, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. And those officers provided victual for King Solomon, for all that came into King Solomon's table. For every man in his month they lacked nothing. Barley also and straw for the horses and dromedaries brought they into the place where the officers were, every man according to his charge. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding, exceeding much, and largeness of heart, even the sand that is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom excelled in the wisdom of all the children of the east country, and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrite, and Heman the Chalcol, and Darda the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all nations round about. And he spake 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. And he spake of trees, from the cedar tree that is in Lebanon, even to the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. And he spake of the beasts, and the fowl, and the creeping things, and the fishes. And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth, which had heard of his wisdom. 1 Kings chapter 5. Herein the king of Tyre sent his servant unto Solomon, for he had heard that they had anointed him king in the room of his father, for Hiram was ever a lover of David. And Solomon sent to Hiram, saying, Thou knowest how David, my father, could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God, for the wars which were about him on every side, until the Lord put them under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord God has given me rest on every side, so there is neither adversary nor evil occurrent. Behold, I purpose to build a house unto the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spake unto David thy father, saying, Thy son, whom I will set upon thy throne in thy room, he shall build a house unto my name. Now therefore command, and go that they hear me, cedar trees of Lebanon, and my servants shall be with thy servants, and according to all that thou shalt appoint, for thou knowest that there is not mine upon us, that... How are you?
Here's another bottle of water.
Thank you. And I'm ones that they can skill to hew timber like unto the Sidonians. And it came to pass when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly, and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, which has given unto David a wise son over this great people. And Hiram sent to Solomon, saying, I have considered the things which thou sentest for me, and I will do all the desire concerning timber of cedar, and concerning timbers of fir. My servants shall bring them down from Lebanon unto the sea. I will convey them by the sea in floats into the place that thou shalt appoint me, and I will cause them to be discharged there. Thou shalt receive them, thou shalt accomplish my desire in giving food for my household. So Hiram gave Solomon cedar trees and fir trees according to all his desire. And Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 measures of wheat for food to his household, and 20 measures of pure oil. This gave Solomon to Hiram year by year. And the Lord gave Solomon wisdom, and he promised him, and there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and they two make a league together. And the king Solomon raised a levy out of all of Israel, and the levy was 30,000 men. And he sent them to Lebanon, 10,000 a month by courses. A month they were in Lebanon, and 2 months at home. And Adoniram was over the levy. And Solomon had 70,010 that bare burdens, and 4,000 hewers of the mountains. Besides the chief of Solomon's officers, which were over the work, 3,300 which ruled over the people that wrought in that work. And the king commanded, and they wrought great stones, costly stones, and huge stones, to lay the foundation of the house. And Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders did hew them, and the stone squares, so they prepared the timber and stones to build the house. 1 Kings chapter 6. And it came to pass in the 418th year of the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, was the 2nd month, he began to build the house of the Lord. And the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof was 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, and the porch of the temple was 20 cubits, and the length thereof, according to the breadth of the house, and 10 cubits was the breadth thereof before the house. For the sale of the house, he made the windows of the narrow lights. And verse 5. Woo!
And against the wall of the house he built chambers round about, and against the walls of the house round about, both of the temple and of the oracle, and he made chambers round about. The nethermost chamber was 5 cubits abroad, and the middle was 6 cubits broad, and the third was 7 cubits broad. For without in the wall of the house he made narrow dress round about, that the beam should not be fastened in the walls of the house. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone made ready before it was brought thither. so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in the building. The door of the middle chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber, and out of the middle into the third. So he built the house and finished it, and covered the house with beams and boards of cedar. And then he built chambers against all the house, 5 cubits high, and they rested on the house with timber of cedar. And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, Concerning this house which thou art in building, if thou wilt walk in my statutes, and execute my judgments, and keep all my commandments, to walk in them, then I'll perform my word with thee, which I spake unto David thy father. And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and not forsake my people Israel. So Solomon built the house and finished it. And he built the walls of the house with boards of cedar, both the floor of the house and the walls of the ceiling. He covered them on the inside with wood, and covered the floor of the house with planks of fir. And he built 20 cubits on the sides of the house, both of the floor and the walls with boards of cedar. He even built them for it within, even for the oracle, even for the most holy place. And the house, that is, the temple before it, was 40 cubits long. And the temple and the cedar of the house within was carved with knops and open flowers, and all was cedar, and there was no stone seen. And the oracle he prepared in the house within, to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. And the oracle in the forepart was 20 cubits in length, and 20 cubits in breadth, and 20 cubits in height thereof. And he overlaid it with pure gold. And so the altar, which was of cedar, and so covered the altar which was of cedar. And so Solomon overlaid the house within with pure gold, and he made a partition by the chains of gold before the oracle, and he overlaid it with gold. And the whole house he overlaid with gold, until he had finished all the house. And the whole altar that was by the oracle he overlaid with gold. And within the oracle he made 2 cherubim of olive tree, each 10 cubits high. And 5 cubits was the one wing of the cherubim, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub. And from the uttermost part of the one wing unto the uttermost part of the other wing were 10 cubits. And the other cherub was 10 cubits, and the cherubim were of one measure and one size. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits, and so was the height of the other cherub. And he set the cherubim within the inner house, and they stretched forth the wings of the cherubim, so that the wing of the one touched the one wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall, and their wings touched one another in the midst of the house. And he overlaid the cherubim with gold, and he carved all the walls of the house round about with carved figures of cherubim, and palm trees, and open flowers within and without. And the floor of the house he overlaid with gold within and without. And for the entering of the oracle he made doors of olive tree, and the lintel and side posts were a 5th part of the wall. The 2 doors were also of the olive tree, and he carved upon them carvings of cherubim and palm trees and open flowers, and overlaid them with gold, and spread gold upon the cherubim and upon the palm trees. So also he made for the door of the temple posts of the olive tree, the 4th part of the wall. And the 2 doors were of fir tree. The 2 leaves of one door were folding, and the 2 leaves of the other door were folding. And he carved thereon cherubim and palm trees and open flowers, and covered them with gold fitted with the carved work. And he built the inner court with 3 rows of hewed stone and a row of cedar beams. In the 4th year was the foundation of the Lord laid, in the month Ziph. And in the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is the 8th month, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, and according to all the fashion of it. So he was 7 years in building it. 1 Kings chapter 7. But Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. He built also the house of the forest of Lebanon. The length thereof was 100 cubits, and the breadth thereof 50 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, upon 4 rows of cedar pillars, and with cedar beams upon the pillars. And it was covered with cedar above upon the beams, that lay upon the 45 pillars, 15 in a row. And there were windows in 3 rows, and light was against the light in 3 ranks. And all the doors and posts were square, and the windows and light was against light in 3 ranks. And he made a porch of pillars. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth thereof 30 cubits. And the porch was before them, and the pillars and the thick beam were before them. And he made a porch for the throne where he might judge, even the porch of judgment. And it was covered with cedar from one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt had another court within the porch, which is of like work. Solomon made also a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken to wife, like unto his porch. And these were of costly stones, according to the measure of hewed stones, sawed with saws, within and without, even from the foundation unto the coping, and so on the outside toward the great court. And the foundation was of costly stones and great stones, stones of 10 cubits, and stones of 8 cubits. And above were costly stones, after the measures of the hewed stones and cedars. And the great court round about was of 3 rows of hewed stones, and a row of cedar beams, both for inner court and the outer inner court of the house of the Lord, and for the porch of the house. And King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram of Tyre. He was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali. His father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Solomon and wrought all his work. For he cast 2 pillars of brass of 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits did compass either of them about. And he made 2 chapiters of molten brass, and set it upon the tops of the pillars. The height of one chapiter was 5 cubits, and the height of the other chapiter was 5 cubits. And nets of checkerwork and wreaths of chainwork for the chapiters that were on top of the pillars, 7 for the one chapiter and 7 for the other chapiter. And he made the pillars 2 rows round about on the one network to cover the chapiters that were upon the top with pomegranates, and so he did for the other chapiter. And the chapiters that were upon the top of the pillars were of lily work in the porch, 4 cubits. And the chapiters upon the 2 pillars had pomegranates also above, over against the belly, which was by the network. And the pomegranates were 200 in rows round about upon the other chapiter. And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar and called the name thereof Jachin, and he set up the left pillar and called the name thereof Boaz. And upon the top of the pillars was a lily work, so was the work of the pillars finished. And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from one brim to the other. It was round all about, and its height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under the brim of it round about there were knops compassing it, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. The knops were cast in 2 rows when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, looking toward the north, 3 looking toward the north, 3 looking toward the west, 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And it was a handbreadth thick, and the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies. It contained 2,000 baths. And he made 10 bases of brass. 4 cubits was the length of one base, and 4 cubits the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height thereof. And the work of the bases was on this manner. They had borders, and the borders were between the ledges. And on the borders that were between the ledges were lions, oxen, and cherubim. And upon the ledges there was a base above, and beneath the lions and oxen were certain additions made of thin work. And every base had 4 brazen wheels and plates of brass, and the 4 corners thereof had undersetters. Under the laver were undersetters molten at the side of every addition. And the mouth of it within the chapiter and above was a cubit, but the mouth thereof was round after the work of the base, a cubit and a half. And also upon the mouth of it were gravings with their borders, 4 square, not round. And under the borders were 4 wheels, and the axle trees of the wheels were joined to the base. And the height of a wheel was a cubit and a half a cubit. And the work of the wheels was like the work of a chariot wheel. Their axle trees, their naves, their felloes, their spokes were all molten. And there were 4 undersetters to the 4 corners of one base, and the undersetters were of the very base itself. And in the top of the base there was a round compass of half a cubit high, and on top of the base the ledges thereof and the borders thereof were of the same. For on the plates of the ledges thereof and on the borders thereof he graved cherubim, lions, and palm trees, according to the proportion of every one, and additions round about. After this manner he made the 10 bases. All of them had 1 casting, 1 measure, and 1 size. Then made he 10 lavers of brass. 1 laver contained 40 baths, and every laver was 4 cubits. And upon every one of the 10 bases 1 labor. And he put 5 bases on the right side of the house and 5 on the left side of the house, and he set the sea on the right side of the house eastward over against the south. And Hiram made the labors and the shovels and the basins. So Hiram made an end of doing all the work that he made King Solomon for the house of the Lord. And 2 pillars, and the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters, which were upon the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates for 2 networks, even 2 rows of pomegranates for 1 network to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were on the pillars, and the 10 bases, and 10 labors on the bases, and 1 sea, and 12 oxen under the sea, and the pots, and the shovels, and the basins, and all these vessels which Hiram made to King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of bright brass. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them in